Hey, I'm Sarah Smith, family doctor, clinical day advisor, and the chatting coach. Welcome back to Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast, where we're going to be interviewing peers or world experts who can help us think about our clinical day in a way that is more sustainable and create time for our lives outside of medicine. Hello and welcome, everybody. Today we have with us Quenby, who is going to introduce herself in just a moment regarding her journey through her health fields and then what she does now. So welcome.
Well, great, Sarah. Thank you again for having me on the podcast today. So my journey began, well, it's been 35 years that I've been in healthcare, and I started out as a registered dietitian nutritionist in the clinical setting. And, it was a very fascinating journey. I have what just pops into my head. I remember I'm sitting at, I'm charting, outpatient, I'm charting. And I remember this was in the day, the physician would come up and you'd have to get up. The nurses, the dietitian, you had to get up, step aside, and the physician would then sit down, take over the chart, do whatever it was they were doing with it, get up and leave, and then you could resume what you were doing. Things have changed. Things have changed in 35 years. And I will get to that because it's great. So I remained in the clinical field for, oh my goodness, a number of years. And then I really, realized I wasn't reaching my full potential and I wanted to do more. And so I had a stint in medical sales, which was fun. But then it was, I've got to somehow be able to connect with people. And so that's what led me into a corporate career around training, development, getting my coaching credential, all in healthcare. Healthcare is a calling, it's a passion. It's not for the faint of heart, as you all know, and that's why I'm in it and have been in it. And I think always kept seeking ways to make things better. My premise, Sarah, is that you've got to be happy at your job. Whatever it is you're doing, you must be happy. And that is probably what propels me the most, is having people happy. At the end of the day, when everybody goes home, they're just like, they're happy. They were glad that they spent the 8, 10, 12 hours at their job. And yet when they step home, they're happy. And I just want everybody to be happy.
Okay, so that's a decently big ask for
Yes,
most
it
people in
is.
healthcare. So tell me about your early years when you're a dietitian nutritionist. Was that desire to be happy within your job and going home and having that, whether that's joy or fulfillment or happiness, that whatever that is that you're experiencing, was that part of what you were having in that early career?
I think initially I was so happy. I think
Mm-hmm.
it really was. And yet there was a little something that was not quite right, because I always I wanted to be in charge, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to have a significant impact. And going up and seeing, Mr. Jones in room 345 and asking him, well, do you want green beans or peas with your dinner? After a while, that was not soul satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what caused me to look outside, look inside, and go, what's next? What can be soul satisfying for me? Still within
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, but just a different utilization of me so I could be used to the fullest.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about I want to be in charge, because as a dietitian, you're going to be part of a team always. Where were you looking to have that autonomy of or the in charge piece? So what is that looking like from your perspective? What were you desiring?
Well, I think what I was desiring was, look, I spent a lot of years in school and I know nutrition cold.
Hmm.
That was then, I knew nutrition cold, and I wanted to be able to have much more of an impact within the team. There was sort of teaming back a long time ago.
Hmm.
Um, I think when I got out of formal, clinical work, the dietitian then really was a member of the team. And what they said from a nutritional standpoint carried weight.
Hmm.
And the team members then, the physicians would listen, the nurses would listen. It was like, okay, great. When I got started in there, not so much so.
Okay. Mm. Had you seen that modeled as a training? Had you seen dietitians be modeled as leaders in their spheres?
Now, yes, absolutely today. So much
Hmm.
so. Not only in the clinical realm, but also outside of that. I see more and more dietitians who've gone into business for themselves,
Hmm.
or working out in the community nutrition, in which they're very much, okay, you're the expert. What do
Hmm.
you have to say?
Hmm. Okay. So then you were getting frustrated with your job, not happy. Where did you go next there? What were you looking for? What did you transition into?
Well, where I went next was, I ended up in medical sales, and
Okay.
I was I wasn't necessarily like looking for that. I just noticed when I was working in the hospital, and we'd have all these food sales men at the time come in. They always seemed really happy, and they're always cracking jokes, and I'm like, well, I want to do that. And so I started in that journey to have that happen. Now, the interesting thing at the time was, well, you have to have sales experience. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm a dietitian. I can sell food. I know what's in the food. I can help you with this. Well, you need sales experience. Okay. Well, as life always works out in an awesome way, I met a woman who was a woman sales rep with Abbott Labs. And I ended up going to work for a division of Abbott Labs. They were looking for dietitians. They
Hmm.
said, "We want your nutrition expertise. We'll train you to sell." And that blossomed a 13-year career. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I got to use my nutrition, my science background, as well as kind of be in charge of my own territory.
Hmm. Okay. So happy achieved.
Yes, I was happy. I was a happy person.
Okay. Any challenges within that environment that came up for you that might have challenged the happy? So we know that happiness 100% of the time is not the human experience, but within that space, you were having an overall good time. What came up for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah. What came up for me was I wanted to be making a different type of contribution. I
Mhm.
felt that I wanted to be somehow more connected with
Mhm.
people. Not
Mhm.
that I wasn't connected with my customer. It was just it was different. And yes, I was
Mhm.
using my science background. There was something, I think, eating at me. No pun intended, but just to that wanted to come out. And again, it was the I wanted to make an even bigger impact
Mhm.
beyond medical sales. And what came up for me was, I want to go into organization development. I want to be able to go in and tell CEOs of hospital systems what to do. I know how to how to be a leader. I can help you with your teams. Now, mind you, here I am. I have a bachelor's degree in science, and I'm now wanting to tell a CEO what to do. It's like, I think I'm going to need a bridge. So I went
Mhm.
back and got my master's in human resources and organization development, and then went to work for a very large health system, Sutter Health, as the director of training and development, and
Mhm.
was then able to work within a healthcare system with the healthcare leaders. And what I found was, again, how to be happy at your job. But what it revolved around was, how do you have a tough conversation? Because so many of them didn't know how to have a tough conversation. I would get a phone call. Yeah, Quenby, we need you to come out to the clinic and we need you to do an in-service because I've got a couple of team members, their customer service isn't so good. I said, well, have you talked with them? Well, no, I don't want to single them out. So can you come out? And I said, how about if I help you have that conversation? Because here's what's going to happen. You bring me out, you get everybody together, and those people who are great at customer service are going to be looking around going, why am I here? And those two people, it's going to go right over their heads. Let me help you with your conversation. And that kind of birthed, I would say, this next iteration of me, which has carried me these past 13, 15, 20 years. Because from there, I became a coach. I got certified in coaching and found that to be, again, even more gratifying and, and has carried me through today. And along the way, I started to work with physicians.
Got it. Okay, so tell us about that situation, because I know that we have many teams that have that frustration about somebody's not on the team doing the things that we're expecting the team to do, like customer service, for instance. How does that conversation happen? So if we're thinking about those couple of people who are just a little bit more abrasive, were they abrasive on the phone? Like what was some of the things that you can tell us about the dynamics of that team and those players and how that conversation starts to happen?
Yes, they were definitely abrasive on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't feel they were abrasive on the phone, but their clinic manager observed them being abrasive on the phone. And so how I helped the clinic manager, the clinic leader around that was what I call today, or actually it's a process I'm certified in called conversational intelligence. And what happens is it's really listening to hear where another person is coming from. Now, that sounds like great common sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little nuance to it because every single one of us has a story out of which we live, right? Even the words we choose to use are based on the stories out of which we live. And so, what may be perceived as an inflammatory word to somebody might not be an inflammatory word to somebody else. And so, when you're able to sit people down and listen to, if you will, where they're coming from, how they source that, tell me why you said what you said to Mrs. Jones on the phone. And then you, as the leader, are sitting back, if you will, practicing the pause and just listening and observing that person. You gain an understanding of where that person is coming from. And then you can then start to talk, if you will, out of the story from which you have, if you will, grown up. And between the two or three or groups, and you start to really listen to one another by what I like to say, practicing the pause, being observing, you then can get to the next level of creating a shared reality. It's a brand new thing that you get to create, and it's a shared reality in which trust happens and you're so much more able to accomplish that which you are setting out to do. I would say out of that, the patient experience gets enhanced. The leader themselves gets to be happy because they have some skills as to how to navigate these very difficult situations. Because guess what? None of us were born knowing how to do this. Most of us don't grow up understanding how to have a tough conversation. It has to be, it's a trained thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Now, if I go into the shoes of the poor little people on the phone, whose job I do not envy at all. So when we've got our front desk staff in a busy clinic and they're
Mhm.
getting lots phone calls, like high volume phone calls. There's nowhere to put the patients because the access is terrible. No one's thought about that, or they thought about that, but they can't really fix it, not at least in the moment. So the next appointment's too long away, and they are dealing with all the rules about who can and can't leave a message and why, and that abruptness on the phone. From the patient going, I just want to get in, I just want to have my needs met, and the staff are wanting to meet those needs but have no tools to be able to meet them because there's no ability to get the patient in or leave a message and all the things. And you can understand why they get a little short, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're all wanting to work towards quality patient care. Presumably, we've had meetings about here's why we value you in our organization, because we're all working towards this experience for patients that we look after them and have quality care. But you're going to get more than a couple of people who are mad as heck at you, even though you're just the person on the phone. It's very hard to be happy. Okay, so yes, they're abrasive, but maybe only 8 out of 10, or not even that much. That's gonna have to be a difficult conversation for the practice manager, knowing what they're going to be told. Why are you abrasive? And it's like, well, let me tell you.
Yes. And this is where the resilience, the mental fitness of that practice manager, that's also a lot of what I work on, is how do you just be with that? How do you just let that abrasiveness come at you? But what I always like to do is, okay, don't let it come into you. Let it go this way. Let it go this way. Or or what I've taught a lot of leaders to do, because it was taught to me, oh my goodness, ages ago. Take your right hand, place it on your left shoulder, and it protects your heart. Protects your heart. So that abrasiveness that needs to come out, that needs to be dissipated, you're not going to take it in. And it is, to me, it's like, let that abrasiveness out, because guess what? It's what's behind it. That's your truth. That's what you're trying to source. That's what you're trying to get at, is what's behind the abrasiveness. And if it's, yes, I've seen this, and I'm a patient too, and I, experience it. Access. I just want to be seen. I just want to get taken care of. I'm in pain, I'm upset, I hurt, and so I'm yelling. And then that causes, what you have is you have two primal brains, your lizard brain's going at it, and it's never going to be a good outcome. You know that. So that's where I work with the leader on, let that team member get that abrasiveness out, let them get that primal brain out, because only then from there can we get at the prefrontal cortex, that creative side, to look at, let's problem solve. Now, Sarah, as everything you all know out there in the audience, if situations are such that short-staffed, access is an issue, all these things are going on that you can't fix, I can't fix, that team member can't fix. But what we can work on is their mental resilience, their mental fitness, and what it looks like to, in its very simplistic yet powerful way, to take a breath. Take a breath and know that my primal brain just got engaged, and my primal brain is running the show, and that's not going to be good for anybody. I have another side, a sage side, that can look at things very differently. And that is what I'm able to work with the leader and their team members around. That's what you do have control over, is this in here.
So we've got the front desk staff who might be a very loving and empathetic person and
Mhm.
really, really wants to do her best job for these patients, but has had years of difficulty with this and the high volume, and they eventually
Mhm.
maybe start to snap. Now, that could be one of the scenarios. We could just have the wrong person on the front desk because they really do get joy out of making people suffer. And we sometimes see that, and that can be different. I'm hearing you from the practice manager's point of view, hearing these good staff members getting sad, disillusioned, angry, miserable because they're dealing with a system that they can't right now change. They really don't feel like they've got any ability to impact how the organization is running the show. And then you've got the practice manager who wants to go on stress leave because they're now hearing this from every side, the patients, the staff, maybe the physicians and clinicians as well, saying, why am I fully booked? I need to get patients in. This is, I'm getting so many messages because I can't get them in. How are we going to change this up? That's going to be, it's going to be really difficult to stay happy in your job as that practice manager. Even
Yes.
if you deflect the noise and you're like, okay, we have a problem, but that, me getting emotional about it is not how we're going to solve the problem, because they're then going to start to get bitter and snappy and stressed out and burnt out and want to leave as well. And we have this now high turnover of staff, which isn't going to help anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so we've got the conversation happening with the staff member and the practice manager. Then we have the practice manager who's sitting in there, also has empathy for her staff, empathy for the patients, empathy for the workplace, but is also feeling stuck. And now her level of resilience is going to start, or his, is going to start to also be frayed, because she has, or he has, probably very good skills and has now learned how to do some conversations, but they're now feeling, so how do we stop this pressure cooker? Like, what is these organization kind of ideas that you've now stepped into? Because you're wanting to develop or talk to the CEOs and say, hey, you got a problem down there.
Oh, right. And so, yeah, absolutely. And it's a couple of things, because if I'm working with a practice manager and that's the level that I'm working at, then it is a total focus on that practice manager and them developing self-empathy,
Mhm,
because what they're trying to do is, which is what we all do in healthcare, we want to be we want to be empathetic, the patient, their staff, the providers, everybody. But where am I in this whole process? I kind of get left behind. And so it's that circling back to, what does it look like for you, if you will, to be well watered and well nourished, so then you can step into this in a little better way. Not that things don't need, not, it's like things from an operational standpoint definitely need to be addressed.
mhm,
And until they're addressed, how do you still take care of you? How do you have self empathy? And this is bringing to mind this really awesome experience I had with a physician who was
mhm,
in a very situation that you're describing. Things were nuts in
mhm,
this particular clinic. And she she was short to frustration. It didn't
mhm,
take much, and she got frustrated and she yelled.
mhm,
And everybody in the clinic, they were having a massive turnover because she was yelling. Even in the surgical suite, she had
mhm,
a temper and would get in trouble. So I had the opportunity to work with her, and she was able to see a real critical piece, which was, Quenby, I have no control. I have no control over most things. And she felt it was her duty as a physician and physician leader to make sure everything was spot on, and to always be going to operations and always be going to administration and pointing out how things weren't right. And all it was doing was just kind of, if you will, eating a hole inside of her. And when she had that light bulb moment around, I don't have control over this. What do I have control over? Things kind of, she was able to breathe. Additionally, she actually started meditating. She started in with a meditation class and just, I mean, she calmed down so much so that the chief medical officer, she was in a meeting and she was starting to wind up and he was thinking, uh-oh. And she was able to self-regulate, just bring herself back to being present and was able to contribute to the meeting in a meaningful way. Ultimately, I think things got taken care of within the clinic, but it did not happen overnight. So I'm going to say, Sarah, that the biggest impact for her was that she self-empathy. I have absolutely no control over the majority of this. How can I show up in a way that can support myself and therefore support the team? I really think everybody has to kind of figure that out themselves with, getting some help.
Mhm. Okay, so it started with her first. I think when we, one, see that physician and that temper, when we're just being curious to it, sometimes it's coming out of trauma and burnout, and it's that this is not, and the physicians will potentially recognize this is not who I am, what's happened to me, that I'm this person who now yells. And so just a little shout out to those of you who are yelling in the workplace that maybe we need to go get you connected and supported and surrounded and looked after. So just keeping that in mind. Sometimes we see the angry people get quiet because they've realized nothing's going to change. Where's my exit? And that exit of, well, if you're not going to listen, if I'm not going to be validated, if I'm not going to be taken seriously here, I'll just look for my next employment. And they're looking for that exit to their next place of work. And so sometimes we see that as a warning sign of, uh-oh, we're about to lose someone to another organization. So I've seen kind of the what you're or I'm going to retire. I'll retire early if that's the only way to deal with this. If I can't have any control, if I can't make an impact, I'm out. And then this approach, which is that if I can look after me, and what do I need right now? And I need and in this instance, it was, I need to calm my physiology, I need to hydrate, and I need to nourish. And I need to say, you know what? I can yell as much as I like. I can be as angry about this as I like, but nothing changes based on how mad and crazy I feel about it. So I can just stop being mad and crazy about it. And then I can, from there, have choice.
Precisely. Precisely. Now, easier said than done.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. I'm just kind of the concise summary of the experience, because sometimes when you're in that yelly mood and you're like, they're not listening, nothing's changing, I need to go tell them again how stupid and annoying this is and why this wasn't booked in properly and this person wasn't blah, 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 blah. But it's just hurting you at the end of the day, is what you recognized, is that it may or may not have been having an organization impact and they may or may not have been working on it, but this person was being destroyed by her amount of time spent on the frustration of it.
Yes. And what she finally realized out of all this was, the organization actually is working on it. My CMO is working on this. He did hear me. And because she was able to finally have self-empathy and settle within herself and have a little bit more resilient mindset, she was then able to actually get that. And that they were trying to make things better. She just wasn't privy to behind the scenes because that wasn't her role. And so she learned a big lesson for her was trust, was to
Mm,
trust what I cannot see.
yeah. And I think if we go back to your original, I like being the boss, you're going to have physicians who are the same. They're like, you got to show me behind the scenes, because if you just rely on trust, I've got years of not trusting right now because you haven't made any impact when I've said something. And so sometimes it's going to take more than being blindly trustful that they're changing. If she's not, so she may not be able to control it. But why not validate her side of the story? Let her know we're working on it. I can't give you all the details right now, but I want you to know you're heard and
Yes.
there's things in play.
Yes.
Does that not build more trust? That conversation, like
And
even the practice, if we go back to the clinic manager and the receptionist and saying, I can't privy you to the things being discussed in the boardroom with the physicians about how they're going to make changes here, but I want you to know you're heard. We agree. It's really difficult what you do on the phones all day. It's difficult. I know you can't get 200 people in today, and I know you want to.
mhm.
And while I can't tell you what's happening behind the scenes, I want you to know there is happenings behind the scenes to try and improve this for our patients, for you, for me, for the physicians. And so that would then help with that trust. You can't control it. You can't be part of it, but we heard you.
Right. And that, I would say, is a real big shift that came out of COVID, is the recognition that that kind of mass professionalism culture that has permeated healthcare forever is really being replaced with what I call empowered vulnerability. So I am able to say, yes, I hear you, you're respected, and things are going on, behind the scenes, and we're taking care of this. And as you said, Sarah, I'm not privy to share that, and I've heard you. And what
Mhm,
I have witnessed all these years is when people know they've been heard,
mhm,
yes, it's just they want to know they are heard, they want to know they're respected. And when that happens, fine, great. Then I can trust you. Now I can get back to doing what I'm doing. And I know there are going to be moments where my primal brain's going to come up, but I've got now some skills on how to navigate that. And there it is. And that's, I would say, what the past 5 years, since COVID has really broken down that, again, that mass professionalism and really replaced it with, again, with empowered vulnerability, where what does it look like to be authentic? What does it look like to say to somebody, I hear you,
mm,
I've got you, I hear you. And we're doing things, and I will report back. I will, check
mhm,
back with you. I will let you guys know what's up as much as I am able to.
mm. Yeah, I think that is a big part of people feeling like they should remain as part of the cog of this organization or this wheel, um, is, if this is just how it has to be, and I'm just told this is how it has to be, that isn't, you're then going to have a choice about whether you're part of it the way it is, because you're being told this is how it's going to be, and you get to decide what you do next, or okay, we got you. We understand what the problems are. This is a slow moving wheel. It's not going to be tomorrow. It
Well,
might
and
not.
I think the emphasis is it is. Healthcare can be slow moving at times. It's, healthcare is huge. It's just this huge, massive entity, and it's so lovely, and it can move slowly.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Have you seen organizations make big inroads into the way they work, their organization development?
Yes. There are it's a medical group, and I've been working with them for a number of years, and the two senior executives and their leadership team. And what these uh, folks have done is, again, it's a very inclusive conversation with the leadership team, pretty much like we've been talking about. So the leadership team knows they're being heard. The executives are always involved. Whenever I'm in doing a training, the executives are right in with that training. And they have created conversational safety. There is such safety amongst that whole medical group now, where you can speak your mind and you will be listened to and heard. And I'm thinking of this one physician in particular, because he'll say, yeah, the other group down the street, they're not so happy. And I have a colleague, that colleague wants to come work for us. And they have made the shift in that it's about the group. It isn't about one individual physician, and that's a big shift. It isn't about
Mhm.
one individual physician, it's about the group as a whole. So what's for the good of the group? And so I think through the opportunity to train their folks in having tough conversations and them building more confidence, they're able to have tough conversations with their colleagues and with the, if you will, the physicians that report into the leadership team. It's made a big difference.
Mm. Who brought you in? Was it the CEO or was it someone else who found you that brought you in?
Yes, it was the CEO. So it was kind of a cool thing because I was working on the operations side of this, and the CEO of the operations side brought me in, and one thing led to another. And so the CEO of the medical group, then actually this individual wanted some coaching. And so I was able to coach him, then coach the leaders. He retired, that CMO retired, and two of the leaders I'd been coaching stepped into those two positions.
Hmm.
And so it's just I've been working with them for goodness about 8, 10 years.
Okay. Okay. It's just curious to find out kind of where does impact happen, and it's it's interesting to hear that it was the CEO who was reaching out for assistance, because then it kind of had a trickle down effect, as you will, because you were acknowledged by the CEO at the beginning as somebody of influence or somebody they wanted to work with. And so just thinking outside the box of other organizations that are struggling, and you're like, I just want the CEO to understand, well, why we're worried, what's going on here. But how would we even start that conversation?
Mhm, mhm. That's an awesome question. We'd have to talk. Um, so how we start that conversation with the CEO?
Hmm.
I'm thinking I'd ask back, where do you where's a connection point? Where do you connect with that CEO? I don't know, like meetings, yeah, yeah, where do you connect with that CEO? That's where I would, that's what I'd want to kind of delve into and see where there might be a little connection point. Yeah, that's what I've got so far, and I'll be able to I'll come up with a whole framework for you at 2 a.m. California time to, and then I'll wake up and try and get a hold of you. This is what you can do. But no, if you're trying to, okay, burning question. Where do you connect with that CEO? Where's your interface with the CEO?
Totally. I know that sometimes if somebody has, like that physician who suddenly stops yelling, somebody might notice and be like, what happened to you? And they're like, oh, well, you just got to go see so and so. She's amazing. Can be a way to develop trust about bringing somebody external in
Mhm.
to teach you something new. So sometimes it's the progress that's demonstrated externally for things that you're doing internally for you. And other times it's just flyers that go by that say, hey, we work with CEOs and we help organizations feel better. And then somebody picks it up and goes, that's a great idea. I should leave it on the CEO's desk. But like you said, it's that personal connection of the connections matter. So our relationships with clinic staff, with our practice manager, with our other physicians. Connection matters. And I know that we isolate ourselves when we're feeling traumatized, when we're suffering within a system that's not working for us or our patients. And so it's really hard to connect because we tend to withdraw as part
Withdraw.
of that experience. But connection matters. So as we build relationships, as we acknowledge their humanness, as we see their vulnerability, say, I know this is hard to hear this for the 15th time, but these areas of the organization suck. Oh, I was listening to this podcast and there's this girl who works with CEOs and she does amazing things for organizations. Maybe you'd be interested. Maybe, right? So it's that, where do we connect with our managers, with our staff? And what does that look like to be vulnerable in conversation?
I love that. What does it look like to be vulnerable in conversation? And that causes a thread for being vulnerable and tracking down the CEO.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, as you said earlier, it's like thinking outside that box, and finding where those CEOs hang out and kind of then how do you just sort of show up, at that place and I don't know, start to have some kind of conversation. It's if you want, yes, because so much of the time it does trickle down from the top, that it is top down when you get the attention of senior leadership, then something oftentimes gets done. Sometimes it is difficult when it's, if you will, at the staff level to push it
Mhm.
up,
Yes.
to push it
Yeah.
up. Um,
Yeah.
but I think most importantly, as I'm sitting here, talking with you, it's really how do you take such good care of your mind and your spirit and your soul? Because, from there, it's what's the gift? What's the opportunity in any circumstance? And just this piece of advice that just flew in, it's like putting something, if you will, out into the universe, the world, the thought, that question. Where's the CEO? How can I get a hold of the CEO? I have this idea. And you just keep asking these questions, and the brain is like Google on steroids. Because when you give the brain a question, when you give the brain a project, it takes off and you
Mhm.
will find the answer. You'll be doing something, you're involved, I don't know, you're planting your garden and you're going to get this aha
Mhm.
and you will get an answer to your question. But it starts with coming up with a question and putting it out there. Just keep putting
Mhm.
it out there.
Okay, I have a question going back to the very beginning. Your desire is everyone goes home happy.
Yeah.
How does the practice manager and that reception staff member go home happy right now before the organization has changed?
Well, I would say happiness, look, it is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
When you really when you can kind of take yourself out of the primal brain stuff that's going on within the clinic, I can be happy because what can I be happy about? Well, I woke up this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm alive
Mm-hmm.
because there are plenty of people that did not wake up this morning. There are plenty of people who are not alive. And so the fact that you have this opportunity, I'd embrace that and be grateful for it. And it's not to invalidate your anger and invalidate your frustrations because that's invalidating a part of you. That's not being self-empathetic. Um, what you want to be able to do is, what's the gift in this right now? Do I just, you know, accept for now and make peace? Or what's that learning for me? And it really, I feel in what you've described, that scenario you've described is it's right here. It's my mental fitness. It's me having self-empathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know when I was struggling with this question myself,
Mhm.
within my clinical practice, nothing changed, but joy was available.
Yes.
Just that little joy is available to me if I want it. And the noticing where I did have a good experience, where I did laugh, where I did have a good connection with the patient, where I did do an amazing job out of a very serious situation for a patient. Those are moments that's telling the other side of the story, not just the, this is shitty, I hate it, I'm not enjoying this, I'm so frustrated, why can't it be better? Like those words, that constant dribble out of my head was not helping me go home happy. In fact, it was making my evening miserable too. Thank you. Versus joy is available. Now that does not feel right about this situation. And where did I laugh today? Who did I have a good connection with? What did I do well? What can I be proud of myself for? Just changes the drivel of my brain. So just when we're talking to our wonderful colleagues on the front phones in the clinical manager's office, and we're saying to them, you got a tough job.
Yeah.
And they're not yelling at you. They're yelling,
No.
and you know why they're yelling, because you'd yelled too. And now what? How can we take that message, do that phone call, but not make it mean I'm bad? Can be just that little teeny tiny stepping stone towards a different experience.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, mental fitness, resilience, um, i- it, as you've expressed, it takes a lot of practice. And it's like, where did I laugh today? Where did I do good with a patient today? Because those things, going back to the primal brain, Sarah, it's like for every because the primal brain is like Velcro and all the bad stuff sticks. The good
Mhm.
stuff is like Teflon. Phew, we don't remember. So you have to have like, I think it's like 3 or 5 good things to put in here for every one bad thing. And that's where saying, oh, I'm grateful I woke up this morning. Well, you got to be doing more of that because as soon as you step into that clinic and those phones are going crazy and, oh, we're short staffed today, all of a sudden, here comes that primal brain and the Velcro of the bad stuff. Oh my God, is going to stick and you're going to forget the fact that I'm grateful I'm alive and have my health. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another piece.
Where can people find you if they're looking to learn more?
Oh, sure. They can find me on LinkedIn at Quenby, and I'm going to spell this. It's Quenby. So it's Quenby Rubin-Sprague Consulting. So that's on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. Or give me a ring. If you're in the US, give me a ring. 916-947-9447, and we will talk.
Perfect. Thank you for this conversation. I think we've had a lot of good, interesting perspectives about how organizations can start to do things a little differently and how we as individuals can too. So thank you for this.
You're welcome, Sarah, and thank you.
Have a good rest of the day, everybody. Thank you for being part of the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. If you'd like to learn more or join us to help you get home with today's work done, go to chartingcoach.ca. There you'll find all the information on the premier Lifetime Access Charting Champions program that is helping physicians get home with today's work done, with all the proven tools, support, and community you need to create time for your life outside of medicine. We would love to see you there. Until next time, thanks for listening.